Howdy, how's it going? Welcome back, or howdy if you're new. This is the new ROG Xbox Ally and the new ROG Xbox Ally X. And man, I couldn't be more excited to show you these things today. I am very excited to tell you that I've been using these for about a week now, and I've had an absolute blast. There's a lot to cover with these devices, and not just what you see on the outside and not just a few technical specs. There's a lot under the hood on these devices that no one has even talked about yet, and man, I just can't wait to dive in to show you, because you guys know I'm a hardware enthusiast through and through. And when I see certain things, I do tend to get a little overexcited. But we're going to cover a lot. Like I said, if there's something in particular you're looking for, I'll try to have timestamps below so you can skip ahead if you want to. I wanted to make sure I gave it enough time to get all the final drivers, all the final updates for what you will be able to experience on yours when you receive it. Because sometimes beta drivers, early access drivers, early access software, the drivers can affect the performance a little bit in one way or another, so I always want to err on the side of caution. I do have some preliminary things to talk about as far as performance differences and the wattages and quite a bit that you'll want to know for sure today. And I will also help you guys who are on the fence decide, is it worth picking up? Are you on the fence with buying the Xbox Ally X? Are you on the fence with buying the Xbox Ally? Are you coming from one of the previous models or something else? For right now, let's just go ahead and dive on in. I'll give you a quick little rundown, and then we'll open this bad boy up right here. And then the next video, we're going to open this bad boy up. So we're going to do mainly focusing on this one today. We'll kind of touch on that a little bit today as well, but it'll mostly be the focus of the shining star, which is the Xbox Ally X. This is my favorite, of course, but I am starting to fall greatly in love with this, especially for certain games and certain kind of scenarios where I want to get just a really lightweight experience where I don't have to worry too much about those AAA titles. This is coming in clutch even for those for some reason. I digress. If you already have your pre-orders locked in, heck yeah, that's awesome. I'm super excited for you, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think. If you haven't already pre-ordered them, no worries. Hopefully this video will help you figure out whether you should do that today or wait. Now, also, I do have links below for everything. If you decide to pre-order them, some of those links may earn me a small commission at no extra cost to you. It is greatly appreciated if you use them, but there is always zero pressure or expectations. Also, quick full disclosure, Asus did send these over to the channel so I could get them a little bit early, and they also did decide that I was able to keep these as long-term fixtures. However, that will never and has never impacted my reviews here, especially because I always make sure that I can say anything and everything that I want and not have to hold anything back. Also, I definitely would have bought these anyways. As you guys know, I'm a massive Ally enthusiast. However, I will try to keep all my biases aside, and I will make sure that you guys know all the pros, cons, quirks, and features, and any caveats and any observations that I like or don't like, because Asus actually really respects anyone's opinions as really something that they could take into their considerations for improvements and for making things better, which you're going to see here shortly. Some of the things that us as enthusiasts have mentioned before that they completely changed, fixed, or improved upon. So I love what they do here, and let's just dive right on in. All right, so now let's get this bad boy unboxed. Inside the box, you're going to have a little stand. At the top, it's going to tell you to plug it in, then turn it on. Make sure that you do that. That's a safety feature to make sure that it doesn't get powered on while it's in transit. Inside of here, you've got your device beautifully and safely packaged. Got a cool little pull tab right here. In this pocket over here, we've got our standard 65-watt charger. This is the same one that the normal Ally and Ally X use, so you'll be able to share the charger between all your devices. You're going to have your paperwork, your warranty information. Be sure that you read over that. There's always some helpful tips and everything in there. Oh man, this feels absolutely legendary. This right here, guys, I'm telling you, this is where it's at. There is no comparison. There is no substitute for these new devices right here. The grip that you're getting, the weight balance, it's so perfect. You won't know until you hold it in your hands just how good this is, because my words can't even summarize it as good as this thing feels. It's absolutely goated. So remember, plug it up, wait for the orange light to come on, hold down your power button, and you'll go through your setup process. It'll take a little bit of time for everything to update through Windows, and then you'll be able to hop right on in and enjoy your device. So we'll jump forward a little bit in time, and then I'll catch up with you guys in a minute. All right, so now let's compare the Ally X to the Xbox Ally X. The main considerations between these two are going to be all of the creature comforts and upgrades that have been done here. Performance is probably the least of your consideration when looking at these two devices, because as you know, there's not going to be a massive difference, especially just yet. Maybe we'll see some bigger differences as drivers mature, but don't expect too much jumping from one to the other. Now, if you're jumping from an OG Ally to this, there'll be a little bit bigger of a jump, especially because you've got, of course, more RAM. It's faster RAM, you've got faster storage, and a few other things as well. Now, this one does have an NPU, which is basically like an AI upscaler that will be implemented at a later date. There's also a few other things that they're going to use that AI NPU for, and hopefully we'll be able to see more details with that as time goes on. This one does not have any type of AI NPU enabled, so that's one of the main differences between these two. All right, so let's touch on performance a little bit and give you an idea of what's going on here. So with the Ally X, your TDP levels on the base would go up to 25 watts for the sustained, and then you would be able to get a boost up to 30 or 35 watts while it is unplugged. Now, immediately when you plugged in your device, those numbers would increase a little bit, where you could go from 7 all the way up to 30, and then you could boost to 43 and 53 respectively. Now, the difference between battery performance and plugged in performance was a noticeable jump, and for some games people really just wanted to play with this thing plugged in all the time to be able to get that extra TDP. Now with the Xbox Ally X, they have increased the power limits on the battery level, so you will be able to get up to 35 watts on that base TDP, and you'll be able to boost up to 45 and boost up to 55 respectively, which is pretty nuts. Because you'll see when you plug it in, those numbers are virtually identical, except this one over here on the right goes to 55 now. So your battery life performance versus plugged in performance are going to be very close together, and I can verify with some benchmarks that that is the case. So I love to see that, because there's several games where I would love to be able to just push this thing to the nines and get all the performance that I paid for without being tethered to a power cord. Now, of course, if you're running this thing at the highest maximum sustained wattages, it will affect your battery life, but honestly, the battery life on this thing is actually goated. I'm going to be doing some long-term testing on this so I can give you better detailed expectations, essentially, between these two units. Over on the GPU settings, because we have the new Xbox full screen experience, some of these are going to be automatically enabling something called Radeon Chill, and essentially that will limit the FPS to either 60 or whatever it's trying to set there, and that will lower the temps, lower the TDP needs and usages, and it will give you better battery life. By default, they have 8 gigs of VRAM set, which is pretty much more than enough for most games. However, if you do think you're gonna need more, try Auto. Auto VRAM seems to work great in my experiences, and I did notice something really cool. Game like Forza Horizon 5, when it ran on Auto, on the Ally X, I would randomly get some stuttering and little performance dips, and it only did it on Auto VRAM. Now that's completely fixed, and the performance is 100% steady and solid. So that was a nice surprise to see. Now let's talk about the experience here with these handhelds. The grip, of course, as you already know, has been substantially changed. Now it's a little bit thicker and it does have some beautiful curves to it, but trust me, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love the increased grip here. I have never really been a huge fan of the candy bar style design. It's just too flat. I end up having to have my pinkies balancing the unit as I'm holding it up, and it does wear out my pinkies pretty quick. The other thing is the triggers and the bumper buttons. I'm going to open the unit up in a second and show you a little bit more detail about those, but now we have huge improvements on the triggers and the bumpers. Now you can see this one has been modded from a back paddle mod. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. But the back paddles on here are pretty much identical to the last one. However, it's just perfectly placed. So as you're gripping your handheld here, you can use your middle finger to tap those buttons, and just the overall grip and feeling of this feels amazing. This is undoubtedly the most comfortable handheld out there. Both of these are going to have the same size grip, the same angles, the same curves, and all the same beauty. So when you're considering a handheld, like I said earlier, there should be a ton of deciding factors when you choose the right one for you. You should never go based on performance alone, because I can't count how many times I've done that and I've picked something up and there's just a ton of caveats, whether it does not feel good in the hands, whether the software is half-baked, or whether there's no aftermarket support for it, or whatever. I think right here, right now, this is the absolute best handheld to date. Sure, there might be some other handhelds coming out in the future that will beat it in performance, but I'm just going to tell you, they're going to be expensive. This right here comes in at an amazing price point, under $1,000. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but trust me, what you're getting here is crazy. The other thing that's crazy is the sound. They have significantly improved the audio between these two units. Already the Ally X was a nice upgrade from the OG Ally, but now we have an even bigger difference. And that comes down to the chambering, which I'll show you in a minute, but they actually have larger speaker chambers, which are gonna really deepen that sound and widen the sound profile. So you're gonna hear a much larger soundstage, and you're gonna feel it too. So certain games, if you're on a ship and you're shooting a cannon, for example, you'll kind of feel that, not just from the rumble, but you'll feel the shots firing off. And that sound feedback is amazing. And if you're playing first-person shooters, because of that wider soundstage, you might even hear footsteps a little bit better. You might be able to hear things more separated, essentially. So the experience when it comes to handhelds, like I said, it vastly differs. And for me, speakers matter a ton because I am an audiophile. These being front-firing speakers means you're going to get that sound front and center, and you're going to feel it, you're going to love it, and you're not going to have to worry about missing out on anything. Alright, so let's quickly talk about the screen, and the buttons, and a few of the other things on the outside before we dive on to the inside. So with the handheld right here, you can see it's vastly different. The one thing that's not different though is the screen itself. I'm sure you already know by now the screen is the exact same. I always say if it's not broke, don't fix it. If they would have changed the screen on here, just after doing some research, I actually contacted a couple of different manufacturers and a couple of different screen retailers. And honestly, I don't think there was a single option that I was able to find, or they were able to find, that would have even remotely been a possibility. The screen connectors are vastly different, the screen layouts are vastly different, and there was just no off-the-shelf option, so it would have taken a completely custom design, and that would have greatly increased the cost. So people were already concerned about the cost with these units because of the increase in tariffs, the increase in shipping costs, manufacturing costs, and so on. So if the price would have gone up based on that alone, I think it would have turned more people off than turned people on, and it was just a net positive to stay with a screen that was already goated from the get-go. 120 Hz, 1080p, VRR, great contrast ratios, great brightness, great power efficiency. They did the right thing with keeping this screen. Trust me guys, I feel you. I would have loved to have had an OLED or a bigger screen in general, but I don't think many of us would have been willing to pay double the price or however much it would have been. I definitely can tell you they're not cheap, and it would have been very expensive. So we've got improved ABXY buttons. They now are curved with the device, and it feels absolutely perfect. This is what a handheld should feel like. It should feel like a controller, because it kind of is. It's a controller with a screen attached to it, essentially. It's freaking awesome. I love this. They made massive improvements with the ABXY buttons here. We also now have a dedicated Xbox button, which will bring up our little menu here. We can navigate, we can change the TDP, we can go in here and change a ton of little individual settings. We can also bring up Armory Crate as well through here, or use our Armory Crate button. There's a ton to do here. Now the joysticks are virtually the same. However, we should be able to upgrade them if we want. Stay tuned for that. That will be coming. And we can also, of course, probably change these out, right? But just wait, we'll see what happens. As far as the ABXY buttons go, they do reminisce an Xbox controller, but unfortunately they are not the same. And at the time of filming this, there's no off-the-shelf replacements for those, but don't worry, I'm working hard on that. So maybe that will be coming soon as well. But otherwise, everything else is really nice. They have fully improved and touched everything they can on this device. And then up at the top, they've improved things as well. You've got wider bumpers, you've got wider triggers, you also have the impulse triggers, and that is going to feel amazing for any type of game, especially like racing games. If you're doing some drifting or cornering and you lose traction, essentially, you'll feel it in the gas pedal, in the brake pedal, you'll feel it, and it just, oh, it's such a unique experience. Of course, we got our Thunderbolt 4 ports, we've got our volume, we've got our little exhaust for the screen area where the fan blows out some hot air through here to keep the back of the screen cool, memory card reader, headphone microphone jack combo, and of course the power button / fingerprint reader as well. And on the back, we've got pretty large intake vents, and we've got pretty large exhaust vents as well. So both of these handhelds have changed dramatically from the previous models. There's a lot of stuff that over the years Asus has improved upon, both in software and hardware, and trust me, they listen. Sure, there's always room for improvements. Sure, there's probably one or two things that I'm going to say here that I may or may not fully like, but overall, what we have here is absolutely mind-blowing. And some of the things no one's even talked about yet. So something else that's really important to people these days is the right to repair, the ease of repairability, access to parts, and also aftermarket support such as mods and upgrades, accessories, and so on. Being able to have those gives you a much better ownership experience, and it also lets you carry your device a little bit longer, and it gives you more options to make the device your own device and to be able to get even more enjoyment out of it. All right, so now let's open this bad boy up and I'm going to show you everything inside that I'm talking about. So make sure you go ahead and power your device off. You've got 3 screws at the top. This middle one is a captive screw, which means it'll only come out about halfway and it will stay in the device. It's got a little locking tab in it, don't worry. These 2 bottom ones come out all the way. And then these 3 bottom ones are shorter screws and they come out all the way as well. Now, if you're looking for a good recommendation for an electric screwdriver or a manual screwdriver, I'll have some linked below. They are affiliate links and they do help out the channel at no extra cost to you, and I'll try to find you some good deals and ones that I actually use. Now, be careful when you are removing these screws. The only ones that are different length are the bottom ones, so you don't have to worry too much about mixing them up this time. These top screws right here sometimes don't come out, and that's okay. They'll come out when you remove the back plate, but just kind of give it a little wiggle. Sometimes a stronger magnet will pick them up, but if not, like I said, it's no worry. Just make sure that they're out. And sometimes you can give it a little tap-tap-a-roo and it'll get it the rest of the way out. Get the device out. Nope, there we go. Okay. I like to do that so I don't lose them and they don't go flying. So the easiest way to open the device up is to start on the left side here. Use your fingernails or a guitar pick or an electronics repair toolkit little spludger thingy. Some of the kits I'll link below will have the proper tools in there, but I've got fairly decent nails, so I can go in there and click like so. Click the bottom, come up to the top, pinch and pull. Do that over here on this side as well. Once you get down to the bottom part, that is undone all the way. Just like double check. There we go. We got that clicked open. All right, once you've got all your screws out and you've already popped all the corners, gently go ahead and flip it like so. You're gonna have a ribbon cable right here. Kind of move that out of the way, just gently. And right here, you're gonna see a black piece of tape. You're gonna gently peel this out of the way. And then you can see there's a little flipper lever right here, this black lever. You're gonna flip it towards the blue part of the cable right here. So you can take your fingernail, flip it up like so, and then you can gently slide out the cable, and there you go. And you'll put it back in the reverse order, and you'll lock that tab back down when you go to put this back together, and then you'll put the tape back over it and so on. So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Now there is a light sensor here, by the way. So be sure to have your charger handy, because when you put this back together, that light sensor will have been tripped. That's a safety feature. So there's a few things that stand out immediately. Some of these are huge features, and some of these are just great smaller improvements. The big improvement here that I like to see is that the battery form factor has not only changed, it has been unified with the other model. Even though they're different capacities, they do seem to be the same form factor. If you want to see if this 80 watt-hour battery will fit in the base model Xbox Ally, drop in the comments below. I'll try that on the next video. But check this out. This battery is more dense. It has great protection with a metal plate underneath it, so to keep the temps more stable in the battery, no hot spots or anything like that. And it does offer a little bit of a better weight balance as well. So having the battery in this spot does feel a lot more balanced. Like I said, this whole entire handheld feels lighter in the hands than you can imagine. It feels lighter than the previous model just because the weight balance is so good. The other thing that stood out to me was the length of the battery cable. So some people had a little bit of a skill issue slash complaint slash observation with some of the installations of the heat-sinked drives. Now this one, it's fine. It's not giving me any issues. It's not touching or anything like that. But if you were to use a thicker drive like this, the cable does get painfully close. Now that's not really a problem per se, because the outside of the heatsink doesn't get hot enough to melt the cable. It's not really a big issue, but over time it might put just a little bit too much stress. So they did change that, and I do like that. Now, one other change that they did was the battery connector itself. Now, this is probably going to be one of those love it or hate it things. I'm kind of on the fence about it, not gonna lie. That's just simply because it's a little firm of a connection, and it does make me a little nervous pulling it out. And I think some people might be nervous as well. Although it's safe, it's not gonna hurt it. It's gonna be fine, it's not gonna break. Now, the reason they changed that is this right here. On the previous models, here was the battery connector here. It's kind of hard to get access in here. You would have to shove your finger in here and flip that metal lever down to unlock it. Then you would have to go in here and pull it by the cable itself, which some people actually ripped the entire connector off the board in doing that, rather than getting a finger under here or under here, kind of prying it gently. Now, it was a little easier, in my opinion, putting it back into place, and it did make latching it pretty easy. Sometimes it was a little fiddly like it is now, but generally it wasn't that bad. So how you remove this connector is a little different. There's no more locking tab. However, there is a pull tab. It does take a little bit of force to remove it. I'm gonna try my best. There we go. It was tricky to get it out, and since I did it at an angle, it made me kind of nervous, but not a big deal. But you can now see that the pull tab is out. When you go to put it back together, just be very careful that you're lining it back up and click both sides in. Make sure you audibly and physically hear both sides click in, because it is possible to put this back together and not have it fully seated back down. So there is a potential for human error with putting back the battery connector. It's not hard, but it's something to be aware of. So love it or hate it, that's a change. Now, let's talk about another change that is incredible and is super bass, or just super bassy, which I love. It's not overly bassy, but what they did here is they gave us audio chambers. Now, these are basically like little internal speaker boxes for the speakers. Now, if you know anything about car audio or home theater, you know that the box can make all the difference in the world. Having a better quality box with different porting and different dimensions can totally transform the sound and how it actually feels. So you could take a pair of cheap speakers essentially and build some really nice speaker boxes and make them sound incredible. Right here is proof of that. These speakers were already good on the Ally X, some of the best, if not the best, but now we truly have the best speakers in the game. Hands down, there's just no other comparison. These things sound good and they feel good. So when you're playing games and you're revving up an engine, for example, you're gonna feel that. It's insane. You actually feel it. You feel it in your chest sometimes. If you're playing first-person shooters or you're hearing a cannon go off on a ship or something, it just really slaps. Audio engineers nailed it. Huge, unexpected change that no one has even talked about yet, that I have seen anyways. So big ups for you guys on the audio engineering side. Really like to see that. Now, the next thing they did here was they gave really good heat shielding on both of these drives for both the Xbox Ally and the Xbox Ally X. And in this one, they're actually using a Samsung drive, which you guys know I love Samsung drives. I think they're absolutely amazing. My favorite drive of all time is the 990 Pro. 4 terabyte with the heatsink. It's a very efficient drive, has the best temps in the business as far as these high performance drives can go. So this is my recommendation. I'll leave links below for all my really good drive recommendations, and these things do support direct storage. These do really matter. So don't cheap out on a drive. Don't buy the budget drives without TLC cache or without some of the features that are really important with drives. They're not all created equal. Now, if you want to install a new drive, it's literally just as simple as removing that one screw and popping that bad boy in and putting the screw back in place. It couldn't be any easier. You don't have to remove the battery cable anymore. It just works. And this will be very easy for you guys to do. Now, if you are wondering, well, what about heat-sinked drives? This right here is one of the largest ones you can buy. It is a very inexpensive, lightweight aluminum heatsink. I can also leave that linked below. There we go. You'll be able to slot that in there and you'll be able to tighten down that screw, and you still have clearance for the back plate, and it's not going to be putting pressure on the cable, and it is completely safe to do. That right there would be the way to go if you're going to use a drive that didn't come with a heatsink and you plan to use an aftermarket heatsink to try to keep it cool. The pro tip that I would give you is to use a single-sided drive. Not all drives list if they're single-sided drives, but rule of thumb is I would really recommend using a single-sided drive because you're going to get better temps out of those as well. Right here is the back of that heatsink, and essentially if you're using a double-sided drive, the memory chips on the back are going to be right above that, and they're going to get kind of heat soaked. Even if you put some protection here to block some of that heat radiating up, they just still get a little too warm for my taste. We will be testing this 8 terabyte later, so stay tuned for the full video on that. You got two options for getting Windows installed. You can do the cloud recovery, which I highly recommend doing, or you can clone the drive using an external cloner. The one thing I do not recommend doing at all is either reusing an old drive from your old Ally or Ally X or any other handheld, wipe it clean, install a fresh copy of Windows through the cloud recovery. Because there's power profiles, drivers, Windows registry, entries, and more that are unique to this device. And if you put it in here, yes, it will boot, yes, it will work, but you will run into some performance issues, and it might actually perform worse or just no difference at all. And you might have some random conflicts as well. So I strongly recommend, to get the best experience and performance possible, to always use a fresh, clean install of Windows. What I do recommend doing is picking up one of these right here. Now, I'll leave links below for my favorite docks as well, and I'll be revisiting them to show you which docks are great, which ones are not. But essentially, this is going to give you an Ethernet port. Now, with cloud recovery, because it uses Wi-Fi or Ethernet, Ethernet is the better of the two. It's going to be faster, perfectly reliable, and you won't run into any hiccups. 1 out of every 10 routers out there might run into a random Wi-Fi hiccup with cloud recovery. So I do recommend using a dock if you're going to do cloud recovery. It just makes things a lot easier. This dock right here has RGB. It also has variable refresh rate or VRR, FreeSync support, and more. So like I said, I'll leave some links below there. So now let's talk about some of the other mods and potential here. So the joysticks, they did still use Alps joysticks, which isn't a bad thing. Some people like Hall effect, some people like Alps, but either way, they're still full-size modules, and we should actually still be able to install the handheld DIY Hall effect joystick kit, which if you want to see these in here, stay tuned for the next video. I'll show you exactly how they work, how to install them, and what my final thoughts are on that. Now, also, since it's using the same joysticks and the same modules, you'll be able to get some of these again as well. So the eXtremeRate, clear, transparent, or many different colors, because you guys know I love modding my devices. I had the purple ones here and so on. And then I also had the magnetic Elite Series D-pad, which I'm going to try to do that on this one as well. So stay tuned for mods if you're excited about mods. One of the other things is the ABXY buttons. Now, I love the custom buttons, but on the old units, you had to remove the entire motherboard. And boy, was that a pain. And boy, did it hear us out, because now we have a separate controller board for the ABXY buttons. Makes it so much easier to be able to pull out those buttons, to upgrade them, to change them, clean them, do anything you want with them. There's just 2 screws for the trigger and 2 screws for the ABXY board itself. Real easy. So something else that they changed entirely were the triggers. Now, these triggers have a little vibration motor inside of here, so they're going to give you some little haptic feedbacks, and it's going to feel really cool. It's going to basically feel like an Xbox Elite Series controller would on the vibrations and stuff. Now, the other thing they changed, which was amazing, because some people had a little bit of an observation. If you didn't see my mod for this, I fixed the issue, and obviously Asus heard us out, and they saw that enough of us just didn't like it. It wasn't really an issue, just more of an observation. But yeah, it was a side-to-side play. This one doesn't have it anymore because I've done the washer mod. If you still have the Ally X and you have that issue, watch my video for it. But yeah, there's no more play. Zero play at all. These things are tight as a tick. They're perfect. The springs also feel better. They feel very, very responsive, and they just feel great. I love what they did with the springs here. Now, the bumpers and the triggers are both wider too. So if you have larger hands, these are going to be much easier to grip, and they're going to feel way better in the hands, and you'll be able to hit the trigger points on any side you want. Same with these bumpers. They can get clicking on anywhere you want. So there are no kind of like dead spots, essentially. I really like that as well. Now, something else is the cooling itself. They're using better fans. Now, the fans before were pretty dang good, but these fans overall have been improved upon. They're going to be a little bit more quiet, and they're also going to be a little bit more efficient, and they're going to be able to blow out more air without making more noise. So the fans, they did improve upon those slightly. And we also have really good contact on our power delivery with this little metal plate here. There's lots of other little things about this device they have changed, which I'll try to dive into later. A lot of improvements. There's a lot of room for us to play around with as well. You guys know I love these units. I worked hand in hand with Handheld DIY and with JSOX to bring you guys mods for the older units, and I'm going to do the exact same thing here. I've already been in contact with several brands. I'm cooking up stuff as we speak, so please stay tuned. If there's any mods or accessories you want to see, any improvements you want to see, drop it below. I do see and try to read and respond to every comment, and they are all greatly appreciated. I love getting ideas from you guys and making them happen. So if you have some ideas or some things that you would like to see done differently, or, you know, just anything at all, let me know. I'm very happy to try those out. Now, as far as NVMe drives go, I will make an entirely separate video for that. I'm not going to go deeper into the cloud recovery or anything else here. I'm going to show you mod videos on the next few videos. So if you're looking forward to seeing what this can do as far as mods and how it's going to look, definitely stay tuned. So let's go ahead and put this back together and explore the software, play some games, and I'll give you my overall experiences. I'll run through some benchmarks, and I'll tell you my overall thoughts on it as well. So this top screw, and especially these over here, it is imperative that you do not over tighten these or you will crack the front of the device. Now, this is not a new thing. This happens on all plastic devices, from laptops to handhelds and more. I've seen it time and time again where people will just crank that Soldier Boy down and it will go straight through and crack the glass or crack the plastics. 2-finger tight is all you need. You just want to feel it stop. Don't use the electric screwdriver part unless you are very experienced and you know how to do the right torque settings and you have a good hand for it. So that's my pro tip for that. And also remember, guys, before you turn this device back on, if you've opened it up, you will need to find your power cord and you will need to plug it in and wait for the power button to be illuminated. Once that power button is illuminated, you can go ahead, power it on, and unplug it. Now, another thing with the Xbox full screen experience, you can log in, of course, with your fingerprint if you have that set up, or you can log in using the buttons. So I'm going to log in right here. So I didn't even have to touch the screen. That's something really cool that I like. So if you're sitting on the couch and your controller's paired up with the device, this will make it much easier for you to get in the device without even standing up, walking over the TV, touching your device. Now you can see we loaded straight away into that full screen experience, and it's snappy. Like when I say this is snappy, guys, like it is very quick. It has improved significantly from the first time that I tried the full screen experience until today, which should be what you're going to see and experience for yourself. They've done so much here to make this experience as amazing on day one as it should be. Like, look at how fast this is. It's just so quick. If you want to go to that desktop mode, just a normal desktop mode, very easy to do so. You can go ahead and exit out of there and you can close out your full screen experience. If you want to open up the My Asus app or the Armory Crate app, it opens up really quick. You can do driver updates, you can do software updates, Windows updates, you can do everything you want to do right through here, and it's just so fast. Software updates through the My Asus app. Make sure that you check all these on day one, and especially throughout the lifespan of your device. Check both of these apps because separate updates come through each one. So another spot that people miss out on when it comes to updates is not just under Windows updates, but advanced options and then optional updates. Sometimes there's other driver updates for other hardware and other security patches that will come through here. So be sure that you're checking all these spots. The other important place to check is the Microsoft Store, and then under downloads. This will give you updates for Armory Crate sometimes, and for the Xbox app itself, and for all the other Windows apps that are installed on here. So it's important, especially on day one, that you check all of this stuff, update it, reboot it, check it again, because having the latest apps are going to give you the best compatibility, the best performance, and the best experience possible. So I strongly recommend making sure everything is fully up to date before you start diving into this thing. Because if you have pending updates, by the way, it will slow down the performance. Now, as far as the Xbox full screen experience, once you've gotten to the Windows desktop, you pretty much have lost the performance benefits of the full screen experience. But you can easily just get back in that full screen experience by entering it back up here at the top. So you can see right here at the top, you can enter that full screen experience again if you want. But you can see where it says restart with optimized performance or start with no performance changes or stay on desktop. I haven't had any hiccups with this, which is kind of wild because I honestly expected hiccups. I completely expected hiccups. I did not have a single issue with the software crashing, random reboots, any conflicts, or anything at all, other than one. Now, I almost forgot about this, but Battlefield 6, and I do believe it's been resolved, but I had one issue with Battlefield 6 where it was telling me that the DirectX was not installed. I had to go in and edit a registry file. That fix is actually on Reddit. Someone else discovered it on other devices, not just this. So it was kind of like all handhelds essentially. So if you had an issue with Battlefield 6 on the final release, just check for that. There's a small registry file. But like I said, I think it's fixed now. I don't think that's an issue anymore. All right, so now let's take a look at some of the benchmarks. All right, let's take a look at Cinebench R23. On the right, we have my Ally X with Z1 Extreme. Now these results are a little higher than what you'll probably see on other people's Ally X's because this one is fully tweaked and fully tuned. It's got the latest and greatest drivers and software. And so basically we have a pretty tight race here, but we're probably going to see this gap widen a little bit as time goes on. Drivers get better, and I do a little bit of tuning to the Xbox Ally X, the Z2 Extreme. But you can clearly see that at the 17 watt performance mode, we are beating it by about 800 points. On the 25 watt mode, we're beating it by about 1,000 points. And then it gets a little bit closer as we go down to that 35 versus 30 watt turbo mode. Now on the 35 watt manual unplugged mode, I really like that. I love the option on that kind of middle ground to where we can get all the performance that we want while we're unplugged, and so we don't actually have to plug it in to get those types of results. All right, next up we have Time Spy. This is a great test because it gives you a breakdown of the GPU and the CPU score, and as well as the overall score. On the right, you can see some older results when I benchmarked the Ally X to the Zephyrus G16 that has the Ryzen AI9 HX370. Now that chipset had that 890M graphics chipset, which is very similar to what the Z2 Extreme has. Now what's a very interesting result here is the fact that we have a handheld that is competing with that chipset and actually ends up beating it at the 35 watt turbo mode on both the overall and the GPU score. However, the CPU score did get beat by a little bit there on that laptop. But we might actually see that gap close up, like I said, with time, with drivers, with software, and with tuning. So hopefully we'll end up seeing that at least kind of bridge the gap a little. All the way down at the 17 watt level, we got some really good results. We are still beating the 30 watt turbo mode overall on the Ally X, even at that 17 watt level. We are seeing some really good results come out of the Z2 Extreme already. I'm extremely impressed with what we have here. Now let's take a look at Night Raid. This is a great benchmark also that breaks down the results in a similar way. This is a good test that I like to run on APUs or with basically CPUs with built-in GPUs. You can see overall that Z2 Extreme is crushing the Z1 Extreme on both the overall and the GPU score. However, I did see a little anomaly here where the CPU score was a little bit higher on the Ally X. That also could come down to a mixture of drivers and tuning and so on, but at the bottom we did see the Z2 Extreme just completely annihilate everything that the Z1 Extreme was able to compete with on that 30 watt turbo mode. So we are definitely seeing some really nice gains here. All right, now let's take a look at FirmArk 2. This is a great GPU only benchmark. This is going to test just the raw performance so we can get a great idea of how this is going to perform and what type of gains we have between these two, just in the raw performance category. So right here, you can see that we're running actually very efficient and very cool. We're getting up to 17% better temperatures. We're getting up to 22% higher FPS, and we're also getting up to 17% higher scores. So overall, the Z2 Extreme is a dominator. This is a great chipset. It has great potential, and I can't wait to see some of the other games gaps widen in their lead. So hopefully this is a good sign to come. I have a lot of faith in this chipset, especially as time goes on. The raw performance is a great indicator of what potential we still have left on the table to gain. All right, now let's take a look at the average fan noise and temps. Now this is basically just proof that the magic that Asus worked here with the new cooler and the fans is doing its job. We actually gained better temps and lower fan noise across the board on every single power profile. It's up to 10% quieter, and then it's also up to 9.5% cooler as well. So great job. Temps are good. Fan noise is good. I really love what I see here. All right, now let's take a look at Black Ops 6, the Z2 Extreme versus the Z1 Extreme. Overall, we're seeing anywhere between 7 to 12% average FPS gains across the board, and we're actually seeing something even crazier in the low fifths and the 1% lows. We're seeing about 17% better 1% lows, and then up to 22% better low fifths. Really impressive numbers considering what we're seeing here on just initial drivers. I cannot wait. I'm serious, guys. I cannot wait until we get more up-to-date drivers and things mature, and we can see things maybe widen even further. I think it's promising. I think we've still got some more room to go, and hopefully we'll end up seeing these gaps widen even further. Some games out there you'll only see between a 5 and 10% difference, and right here we're seeing anywhere between, like I said, 7 to 12% difference across the board. So that seemed to have been about the average that I witnessed across all the games that I did play. I'm going to try to do some more detailed benchmarks later down the road, but for right now, let me just show you a couple of games, how they played, what settings I used, and then I'll give you a final conclusion. Take a look at Battlefield 6. I'm going to show you how it plays on mine and the settings that I'm running. That way you can get an idea of how it will run on yours. So what you want to do is to go over here to settings, go down to graphics. I've got it set for custom and custom. Got these stock 3 settings here. Under advanced, I can show you I've got fixed resolution set at 100, frame rate limiter off, dynamic off, AMD anti-lag is on. I've got FSR set to balanced. Frame generation is on. That's a preference, but honestly, I think frame generation is done so well on this, and it doesn't add any noticeable input latency, and I do think it's worth trying it out because it does give me a really good frame rate. I can show it to you with it off in a little bit if you want to see it. Future frame rendering is turned off. Performance overlay is turned off. Now going back to the graphics settings, you go back to the individual quality settings, and these are the ones I'm running here. I've got texture quality set to high, filtering set to low. Most everything else is set to low or either off. So you can tinker around with these and get them set how you like. Field of view set to 90. Everything else is pretty much stock, except I did turn down the reduced sprint camera bobbing, turned off camera aberration, turned off vignette, turned off film grain, got it set to full screen 1080, refresh rate 120, VSync is on, and I think the rest of these are pretty much stock. Oh, and I did turn off the Sovas filter, and yeah, I think that's about it. So right here I'm getting about 110 FPS, and we're using about 6.2 gigs of VRAM, and we're using about 12 gigs of RAM. So that's perfect. Ah, didn't see him. But yeah, 100 FPS is pretty good. Without frame gen, I think we'll be able to do about 60. The only other thing I will say is getting used to the buttons being flipped took me a little bit of time. Unfortunately, I kept accidentally hitting the wrong buttons here. These two buttons are flipped from the Ally X and the Ally. It's probably the only other complaint I have. So let me go in here and try to turn off that frame gen, and we'll see what we're working with now. So yeah, we're getting about 67 to 75 FPS, and it feels about the same. It really doesn't change much. The frame rate still feels absolutely smooth as butter. There's no felt latency or anything like that. The 60 FPS feels extremely good. The VRR and the refresh rate on this panel and the latency, it's perfect for these types of games, even at 60 plus FPS. You don't have to have a solid 120 FPS to play fast motion first person shooters at all. Man, playing with some sweaty people. And I also haven't played today, so it's been a day of filming and editing, so probably not going to be on my best game on this match, but I wanted to at least show you how it looks. Alright, so this is Tokyo Extreme Racer. If you haven't played this yet, you definitely have to, especially if you're a JDM enthusiast and you like Initial D, Wand Gone Midnight, Tokyo Extreme Racer, the old school stuff, you'll love this. Go ahead and open up options, turn off that camera vibration, go to graphics settings, and set everything you see here. Full screen, 1080, lock it to 60 FPS, VSync on, draw distance high. Everything else is high except shadows set to medium. You can set it low if you like as well. Screen ratio 60 and anti-aliasing set to TSR. Alright, so here's the individual AMD settings that I have for this particular game. I've got fluid motion frames enabled, search mode auto, performance mode performance, Radeon chill is enabled. I've got it set to 60 and 60, and that's pretty much it. Now the wattage I am playing at right now is 17 watts, and that is pretty much the lowest you can play it at. You can drop it down to 13 and get away with it, but I think 17 is kind of the sweet spot for this game. Alright, so straight away we're getting about 70 to 80 FPS, and it is buttery smooth. Right now I think I'm going to show you what it will look like at 13 watts so you can get an idea. It cranks the performance down a little bit. We're still getting 50 FPS or so. It's smooth, but you can tell that the frame generation is struggling just a little bit. It has introduced a noticeable amount of input delay, so I strongly do recommend leaving it up at that 17 watt mode. It just feels so much better. Now just for kicks and giggles, I'm going to turn that to 60 Hertz, and then I'm going to put on a 60 FPS frame limiter, and we're going to see what that does for us. We're only running about 16 watts. Temps are in the upper 50s. Fan noise is non-existent. I do not even hear it at this point. And it just feels absolutely buttery smooth. This game is really easy to play on this device. You can play this also on the ROG Xbox Ally, and it plays very well, which I'll show you on the next video. We'll go through a lot of games, and we'll check that out as well. But for right now, 16 watts. This is playing really well. Alright, now let's take a look at Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. I'll show you the settings I'm running, and then I'll show you how it plays. So under graphics, I've got it set to 1080. I've got FSR quality. Graphics set to custom. Shadows are low, textures are high, global illumination medium, bloom off, motion blur off, and you can see the rest of the settings here. Alright, so with Metal Gear Solid Delta, it's an Unreal Engine game. It's very hard to run this game, I'm not gonna lie, but if you want to use a mod manager that you can get off of Nexus mods, you can actually make this game run well above 60 FPS with some frame generation enabled, and it plays even better. But currently in its raw state, I'm getting about 50 FPS or so at that 17 watts. Now let's see what happens if I crank it up. Let's try. Alright, so right here I'm getting a good solid 60 FPS. It will dip down below that, but I am maxing this thing out at that 45 watt range, sitting at about 89 C. Fans are running, but they're still not that loud. I don't have the volume up that loud, and I barely can hear the fans. Now if I drop this down to, let's just say, the 25 watt turbo mode, I've still got fluid motion frames. Let's turn on that AMD chill. CPU boost is off, but I'm going to go ahead and just enable it, and we'll see how it looks. So we're still getting about 50 to 55 FPS. We've dropped the temperatures down into the low 70s. It's at 71 now. We're only using about 24 watts. So I think that's probably the sweet spot, about 25 watts for this game. It plays pretty smooth. This game is an Unreal Engine game, and it is not optimized at all for these handhelds. However, if you want to play this even better, you can go to Nexus mods and you can download some mods for this game to get it to run even better with some experimental frame gen and so on. So it will run even better if you want it to. Alright, so the last game we're going to take a look at is Forza Horizon 5. This game is very well optimized, but there's a ton of different ways that you can run it and totally get completely different performance out of it. But essentially, I'm running this game at 17 watts. That is running this game so well, it's pretty much like you would see it on 25 watts with a Z1 Extreme device. Now, the other cool thing is that since we have the Xbox full screen experience, we've got some RAM that has been freed up. So now I don't have to worry as much about running out of RAM or running out of VRAM. I can just set whatever limits I want, and it's pretty much good to go. But let me show you some of the settings I'm running here currently. Under video settings, I've got it set 1080p, frame rate 120, VSync is on, motion blur is off, and I've got FSR set to balanced. Although if you run it at default settings, it's going to likely be MSAA 2X and FSR is off. and then most of these will be mixed at whatever. But I've got this at a mixture of high, ultra, and some off and some low. So you can copy these settings down if you want to try them. It runs extremely well. And then for the AMD settings, I'll show you what I have set up. I've got just anti-lag. I'm not running fluid motion frames or anything like that. It's pretty much running at stock settings just with the anti-lag. This is a very, very well-rounded handheld, and I mean that in every way possible. I love the way this feels in the hand. All the little changes they have made to this have added up into just the best package possible for the money. Now, performance, like I said many times, it should never be the #1 deciding factor in a handheld choice. And that's mainly because we're at a time in handheld history where the performance is already so good on any of those Z1 Extreme devices, especially if it's got, you know, more than 24 gigs of VRAM. I think that's kind of like the bare minimal for most AAA titles. So I do think if you're on a handheld that still has 16 gigs of VRAM, this would be a huge upgrade, because there's, like I said, there's many games that really do use a lot of RAM and a lot of VRAM. And since you're sharing it, you really should have a little bit more. Now, with this handheld in particular, there's not a huge performance jump between a Z1E and the Z2E, but it's enough. It's a 10 to 15% boost. Now you get a little bit better efficiency at lower wattages. I'm able to get a little bit better battery life, and hopefully with time the drivers will help things out even more, because these are just early drivers. We haven't seen the full capability yet. The Z1 Extreme drivers aged extremely well, and along the way we saw tons and tons of performance improvements. So I can only imagine what the performance difference will be like in just a matter of a month or two. So hopefully we'll see that even sooner, but yeah, it just, to me, is already worth it. Even if you're only getting a 10% difference in performance, I think that's definitely not a bad jump at all. The Z1 and the Z2 Extreme are both very capable chips. They both are great, but you also get that NPU. It's that AI upscaler that will be even more handy in the future as time and implementations go on. So I do think this is a very worthwhile handheld to upgrade to. But if you're on a Ally X already, I don't think you should rush out and go buy this unless you really can justify all the other features and creature comforts as well, like I can. The sound, the experience, the grip, the comfort, the efficiency, to me is worth it. But if you're on an older device or something with 16 gigs of RAM, you know, and you were kind of comparing the Ally X and the Ally Xbox X, then there's only $100 difference, and I think there's a no-brainer situation right there for you. $100 to get this much extra is well beyond worth it, but it's maybe not worth it if you already have an Ally X to just go spend $1,000, unless maybe you plan on selling your Ally X to a friend or family member, somebody who's going to give you a pretty good value for it, because then it wouldn't be that big of a deal. You'd only be spending like a couple $100 out of pocket to get a totally new handheld. Now, if you are looking at getting the Xbox Ally, the Z2A, and you're already on an Ally, I totally don't recommend that. I totally recommend, if you've got any type of Z1 Extreme chipset, to stay where you're at and wait for the Z2 Extreme. Just make it an upgrade, not a side grade or a downgrade. There's certain people where the Xbox Ally with that Z2A are going to make a lot of sense for. At $599, it's kind of a hard recommendation because it gives you generally kind of the same performance as a Steam Deck. Some games perform better, some games perform worse, but it really depends. I'll be diving into that a lot deeper later. Also, keep in mind, if you're looking at other handheld options out there, there's, like I said, a lot of factors you should really consider. A lot of people really simp over the Steam Deck, and some for the right reasons, but I got my wife a Steam Deck because I figured it would just be something easy, something enjoyable, something that didn't have a lot of FAFO and didn't have a huge learning curve. But to her, it was a big learning curve, especially trying to deal with Proton and trying to deal with game compatibility and learning that a lot of the games that she plays are not compatible in SteamOS for whatever reason, whether it's anti-cheat or just controls. So that's been something that she didn't really like with the Steam Deck. Also, she does not like the way it feels in the hand. Although it's got a nice size screen, it just does not feel right in her hand, just like it didn't feel right in mine. I do not like the way the Steam Deck feels. For her, she loves the way that the Ally and the Xbox Ally feels in her hands, so I'm probably going to end up giving her the white Xbox Ally, and that's going to be her go-to to be able to play, and it'll allow me to keep it around the house and be able to use it for more content and stuff like that, and it'll be putting it in the hands of really good use, because I can't use two at the same time, and I just would rather her use it and enjoy it, and us to be able to share that experience together of both being Ally owners. And I think she's gonna really enjoy it. I haven't told her that's the plans yet, but I'm pretty sure she'll be super stoked. So let's talk about the Xbox Ally. This handheld didn't get the most glowing review, and trust me, I understand. It's not the fastest chip out there, doesn't have the most amount of
recommended amount of dedicated RAM,
and it is still $600. It is a little hard to recommend for everyone across the board, but for the people that this was made for, they're going to absolutely love it. Because look, I'm playing Forza Horizon 5. I'm putting this thing at 15 watts. I've got the settings at a mix of medium and high, and watch. I can still get a good solid 60 FPS. And no, this is not cloud play. I'm playing this natively on the device. I'm not using any type of frame gen. It's actually just playing so well. I really can't tell you enough how underrated this handheld right here is. I definitely think if you're looking for a handheld under $600 and you value comfort, you value all the things we had talked about, the upgradability, the ease of use of getting in the device to put in a bigger NVMe drive, the ease of use for changing out for Hall effect sticks, tons of accessories, tons of mods, this handheld has potential for days to keep you busy, keep you super entertained, and I definitely think it's going to fit a lot of people's kind of boxes, and it's just going to check off all the boxes. Honestly, if you're looking for a very budget friendly handheld, this would be it. I know budget friendly at $600 is definitely a strong set of words there, but you know, hey, we're in some odd times when it comes to tech. Tariffs have raised things up quite a bit. Everything out there is more expensive, so it is kind of tough to recommend certain things. Trust me, I get it. If you've got an Ally OG Z1 non-extreme, this would definitely be a nice little upgrade slash side grade for you. I think you would have a ton of fun with this device. It's way more comfortable for sure, and has a lot more potential. Better battery life, better overall comfort. I just think the sound, everything is incredible in this device. It's an upgrade in my eyes. If you're coming from a Steam Deck, definitely an upgrade as well. Although, you know, SteamOS has a few advantages. I still think Windows is king because you're not boxed in an ecosystem and you can literally play anything you want, including online games that have anti-cheat engines built into them. Alright guys, so sound off in the comments below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you're planning to stay on your current handheld or if you're planning to upgrade, and if so, what are you upgrading from and why? What was the deciding factor on whether you're going to stay or whether you're going to upgrade? If you have any further questions, definitely drop them below. I always look very forward to helping you all as well. One of the most rewarding things about what I do is seeing you guys get excited about a device, or to be able to fix an issue, or to be able to resolve an issue, or to be able to just figure something out. I absolutely love that. That's the most rewarding part for me, is to be able to provide solutions and to be able to provide answers and to help people. That's definitely my purpose and my calling. So if there's ever anything I can do to help you, just feel free to let me know. It's never a bother. You don't owe me anything at all, so don't worry. People always ask, and I'm just like, you owe me nothing. Anytime I spend an hour or two with someone, nothing's expected. You don't have to do anything at all. If you ever want to take things a little further, hey, just feel free to use any of my links in my descriptions. Those little affiliate links cost you nothing, but might earn me a small commission. Or hey, if you want to become a channel member or something like that, that's always cool, but definitely never expected. But if you do become a channel member, you do get shout outs in videos, you do get early access to videos, you get cool channel badges, and you also get some members only spicy content that sometimes never comes to the light of day. I like to show my members what mods I'm working on, different things that I've got in the works, stuff that just might be a little too early to kind of show off fully, and I like to get some input and feedback from the members as well. So it's always fun to interact with you guys. All right, well, that about rounds it up. Let me know which device is the most enticing to you, or neither. I don't really know what your thoughts are, so let me know below. As always, guys, much love. Huge shout out to those channel OGs, the channel members. You guys are the GOAT. Thank you all so much for your love and support. Thank all of you for making it this far in the video. Stay tuned. We have so much more to cover. We've got mods that are going to be done on both of these devices. We have accessories for both of them coming. Oh, it's going to be epic. And a lot more videos as well for games and tuning and driver updates and everything. These are going to be, like I said, hot on this channel. So if you are an Ally fan, don't worry, we got you covered. Even the Ally X, we're not going to abandon the Ally X. Trust me, guys, this is still going to be on the channel as well. So anytime I get a new device, don't worry, I'm not getting rid of the old ones. They're still sticking around. They still get the same love and same, attention and treatment. So anyways, I'm rambling. I hope all of you, as always, have a good afternoon, good evening, or good night.